Story 1. I've always been a light sleeper, and that night was no exception. I'd been driving for nearly 10 hours, cutting through the back roads of Oregon with my dog Rufus in the passenger seat. I was trying to make it to Boise, but somewhere past midnight, the fatigue crept up on me harder than expected. I pulled into a small, unmarked rest stop, a gravel loop off a narrow stretch of highway, half-eaten by trees. The place wasn't on Google Maps. No lights, no bathrooms, just the cracked remains of what might have been a picnic table decades ago, and the forest pressing close like it wanted me gone. But I was too tired to care. I killed the engine and reclined the seat. Rufus curled up behind mine. He didn't sleep much either. I don't know how long I'd been out when I woke up to his growl. Low and cautious, not panicked, more like he was waiting for something. I sat up, heart ticking a little faster. It was pitch black outside. No moon, no streetlights, just the dim blue of my dashboard clock. 3:12 a.m. Shh, I whispered, reaching back to pet him. He didn't stop growling. I checked the mirrors. Nothing but forest shadows and the outline of my own face in the rear view. Then came a sound, barely audible, like leaves being stepped on. Slow, deliberate. Rufus was now standing, peering out the driver's side window, growl rising to a throaty whine. I cracked the window an inch. Cold air slid in, carrying nothing but the hush of trees. Probably a raccoon, I told myself, not even believing it. There was no chittering, no rustle like animals usually make, just a single set of slow steps. Then nothing. I turned the ignition, ready to get out of there. The engine made a weak clicking sound, then died. Battery? But the lights had been off. I tried again. Click! Rufus barked sharply, slamming his paws against the window. I caught movement in the rear view. A shape. Not close. Just far enough to make out a pale figure standing at the edge of the tree line. No flashlight. No phone glow. Just standing there. I didn't wait. I grabbed the keys, opened the door, and yanked Rufus out behind me. We sprinted onto the road. My phone had no service, but I used the flashlight and followed the double yellow lines until we hit an actual rest stop, with vending machines and a few trucks idling. The next morning, I went back with a tow truck. My car started on the first try. Nothing wrong with the battery. No sign of anyone or anything around. No footprints. I don't sleep at rest stops anymore, and I keep a gas can and extra power bank in the trunk now, just in case. But I've never been able to explain who or what was waiting in those woods. Story 2. I took a solo road trip through Arizona 2 summers ago. My therapist called it recalibration, something to help me reset after a rough breakup and some career burnout. Just me, some gear, and a map marked with quiet spots, ghost towns, desert trails, remote parks. About halfway through the trip, I passed through a near-abandoned town off Route 66. I forget the name now. Something like Halberd or Halden. There was no cell reception for miles, which was oddly liberating. I found a cheap motel on the edge of town. Pale pink stucco, 8 rooms in a single row. The sign just said, "Motel," in faded red neon. The man at the front desk, middle-aged, polite but distant, gave me room 3. Said I was the only guest that night. After dinner at the only open diner, I went back and sat on the little porch outside my room, enjoying the stillness. The desert at night is so quiet it almost feels fake. No cars, no wind, just the tick of cooling metal and your own heartbeat. I heard a door open 2 rooms down. That was odd. The guy said I was alone, but room 5's door had swung open and someone stepped out. A man, tall, gaunt, maybe in his 60s, stood under the porch light looking toward me. He didn't wave or speak, just stared for maybe 10 seconds, then turned, and walked behind the building. I figured he was staff, or maybe someone who arrived late. Still, something about the way he moved, slow, methodical, like he was underwater, made my skin crawl. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of someone knocking. Not loud, just a soft tap, tap, tap. I froze in bed. The knock came again, 3 slow taps. I sat up, heart racing. I wasn't about to open that door. I waited, barely breathing. Nothing. I got up, looked through the peephole. Nobody there. In the morning, I asked the man at the desk about the guy in room 5. He blinked like I was speaking another language. "You're the only one who's been here in 3 days." "But I saw someone last night," I said. "Room 5. Tall, older guy. Walked out around 9. He looked toward the row of rooms and then back at me. "Room 5's been locked from the inside since last week. Deadbolts jammed. I haven't had the locksmith out yet." I checked out early and didn't say goodbye. As I was pulling out, I glanced back at the rooms. Room 5's curtains twitched. Just a little. That's all. But enough that I didn't stop driving for the next 6 hours. Story 3. My friend Kayla and I had this tradition of taking spontaneous weekend road trips during college. No plans, no GPS, just a paper map and snacks. One weekend, we headed north through upstate New York, winding through small towns that felt frozen in time. We got caught in a downpour near dusk, and with no cell service and low fuel, we stopped in a town called Bellwood. Not a ghost town, but close. The main street had maybe 6 businesses, all shuttered except a convenience store that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. The cashier, an older woman with wild hair and dark eyes, barely acknowledged us. We asked about gas or a place to stay. She just said, "Use the old station on Sutter Road. There's a house next to it. He rents rooms." "He?" I asked. She didn't answer, just rang us up and turned away. Sutter Road wasn't on the map, but we found it a few miles out, tucked between thick pines. The gas station was a husk, windows broken, pumps missing handles. But next to it stood a Victorian-style house with a crooked vacancy sign swinging in the rain. Against better judgment, we knocked. A man answered. Mid-50s, white t-shirt stained with what looked like oil or old paint. He smiled like someone who hadn't done it in a while, but he was polite. Told us he had a room upstairs. Cheap, just for the night. We didn't want to sleep in the car during a storm, so we took it. The house smelled like must and motor oil. The room had floral wallpaper, twin beds, and a window that overlooked the gas station canopy. I couldn't shake the feeling that the wallpaper had once been red, like there was something beneath it that was trying to bleed through. We tried to laugh it off, but both of us were uneasy. Kayla kept checking the window. I noticed she'd locked the bedroom door 3 times before lying down. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a woman crying. Not sobbing, just a soft, choked whimper, like someone trying to stay quiet. I sat up. Kayla was still asleep. The sound came from behind the wall, close, like someone was on the other side, pressed right up against it. I listened for a minute, then reached to wake Kayla. She stirred, and the sound stopped immediately. We sat there, staring at the wall. Then came a tap. Soft, deliberate, from inside the wall. We didn't sleep after that. At sunrise, we packed up and crept down the stairs. The man was already outside, wiping down an old pickup. He didn't say a word as we left. 2 weeks later, I looked up Bellwood out of curiosity. Couldn't find anything. No listings, no location. Not even the road we'd taken in. I asked Kayla, "Do you remember where we stopped?" She just looked at me and said, "Let's not talk about it anymore. We haven't taken a road trip since." Story 4. I was driving through Nevada last August, cutting across long, sun-bleached highways with nothing but old rock stations on the radio and tumbleweeds for company. I had no destination, just the desire to be somewhere else for a while. Midway through day 3, I started seeing signs for a scenic overlook called Dead Horse Bend. I was intrigued, mostly because the name was so morbid. The sign said 5 miles ahead, then another one, 3 miles, then, you're almost there. But when I hit the 5-mile mark, there was no turnoff, no road, just more desert. Then I saw a dirt path, no markings, just a faint track into the hills. I pulled over, debated it, then turned onto it. Maybe it was the overlook, maybe just a fire trail. I figured I'd go a mile or 2 in, snap a picture, and head back. I drove for 10 minutes, then 20. The dirt road narrowed, winding up a rocky slope. No signs, no fences. The land was dry and silent, like nothing had moved there in years. At some point, I realized I hadn't passed another car. Not one. And I hadn't seen the overlook either. I stopped the car, got out, stretched my legs. That's when I noticed it. A rock, just off the path. Carved into it, almost lazily, were 3 words. Turn back now. No arrow, no name, just that. I stood there for a minute, trying to decide if it was a prank or a warning. I laughed at myself, nervous and hollow, and started walking ahead to scout the road. Rufus, my German shepherd, stayed close. About 50 yards ahead, I found something else. An old camping chair, rusted to the frame, and beside it, what looked like a shoe, half buried in dirt. Torn and weather-beaten, like it had been there a long time. I felt that cold, animal chill rise in my spine. I turned back, only the car wasn't where I left it. I froze. There was the path, the rock, the same footprints, but no car. I ran back, thinking I was turned around, but after 3 minutes, 5, still no car. Then I heard Rufus bark. He was ahead, tail stiff, staring at a cluster of rocks. I jogged over and saw it. My car was there, parked, exactly where I'd left it. Except the driver's door was wide open, and the seat was reclined like someone had just gotten out. I slammed the door, locked it, and drove back to the highway without stopping once. When I got to cell reception, I tried searching Dead Horse Bend. It doesn't exist. Not on any map, not in any blog, nothing. But sometimes, when I'm driving late and alone, I'll see signs again. You're almost there. I never follow them anymore. Story 5. A couple years ago, I took a week off to drive across the Midwest with my dog, Margot. I wasn't trying to find anything. I just needed to get away. The open road helped quiet my head. Somewhere near the Kansas-Nebraska border, I veered off the main highway looking for a place to camp. Nothing fancy, just a quiet patch of trees or a rest stop where I could park and sleep a few hours. The road I turned onto had no name, just a dusty trail through fields that stretched forever, flat and yellow. After 10 minutes, I found a clearing beside a line of trees. No houses in sight, no lights. It felt safe in that hollowed-out way the countryside does, where silence becomes its own kind of comfort. I parked, fed Margot, and leaned against the hood with a sandwich and a beer. The sun dipped under the horizon in a smear of red. It got dark fast. Too fast. I hadn't even finished eating before the stars were out, and the temperature dropped like someone flipped a switch. Around 10, I crawled into the back of the car and zipped into my sleeping bag. Margot curled up at my feet. The windows were cracked for air. All I could hear were crickets and the occasional creak of the car settling. Then came the crunch of footsteps. At first, I thought it was Margot shifting around, but she was still, ears perked, staring out the side window. The sound came again, slow, deliberate. Crunch. Crunch. Like boots on dry grass. I held my breath and peered through the rear window. Nothing. Just empty field. I whispered, "It's fine," hoping to convince both myself and Margot. But she didn't move. Her ears twitched, and a low growl rumbled from her throat. The footsteps circled the car once, slow, measured, then stopped. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I got out, walked the perimeter. No tracks, no sign of anything. But the grass on the driver's side was flattened, like someone had stood there for hours. I got back in, started the car, and left without finishing breakfast. About 5 miles down the dirt road, I passed an old farmhouse I hadn't noticed the night before. The windows were blacked out. Spray painted across the front door, in giant, erratic letters, were the words, "You're being watched." That road's not on any GPS. I checked when I got home, not even a pin. Sometimes I dream about those footsteps. Always the same rhythm, always just outside the window. Story 6. Last fall, I drove from Denver to Taos for a photography project. I planned to stop in a few remote spots along the way to shoot abandoned buildings, old barns, broken down gas stations, forgotten motels. Something about decay appeals to my lens. It was on the third day, close to the Colorado-New Mexico border, that I found an old roadside attraction long since gone defunct. A massive fiberglass dinosaur, half collapsed, its teeth chipped, its eye sockets black. Behind it sat a one-room gift shop, boarded up, tagged with graffiti. I pulled over. The place was perfect. Sunlight slashed through holes in the roof, illuminating dust and debris. I stepped inside with my camera and started shooting. It wasn't until I reviewed the shots on my LCD screen that I noticed something weird. In one of the photos, behind the front counter was a figure, just barely visible. Tall, wearing what looked like a parka with a fur-lined hood, head down, motionless. I spun around. Nobody. The building was empty. I was sure of it. I checked the next few photos. No figure. Nothing. I thought maybe it was a trick of the light, shadows from a broken beam, or the angle of the sun. I left quickly, but not in a panic, just unsettled. That night, I stayed at a small roadside motel just north of Taos. Old but clean. The woman at the front desk told me I had the whole back wing to myself. At around 1 a.m., I woke to a soft scraping sound, like fabric brushing against brick. I got up, looked out the window. At the far end of the lot, right under the flickering security light, stood someone. Same height, same parka, just standing. I blinked, and they were gone. The next morning I checked out early and drove back to the dinosaur site. I needed to prove to myself it was nothing. But the fiberglass dinosaur was gone. Just gone. In its place was a bare concrete foundation, partly overgrown. No gift shop, no debris, just empty dirt and a rusted signpost. I was so sure it had been there, had the photos to prove it. But when I went to look at the pictures again, the folder was missing. Every shot from that day had vanished, not deleted, not corrupted, just gone. Only one file remained, a single photo taken inside the gift shop. The parka figure was now closer to the lens, and their head was lifted. Just enough to show a grin. I've stopped shooting abandoned places. I only do weddings now. Safe, predictable. No more roadside attractions. Story 7. It was supposed to be a simple detour. I was on my way to visit my sister in northern Michigan, and my GPS showed a faster route through a forested back road. I'd been driving all day and didn't want to arrive too late, so I took it. The road narrowed quickly. Pavement gave way to gravel, and then gravel turned to dirt. My phone lost signal. Trees crowded close, dense and heavy with late autumn fog. Still, it wasn't anything I hadn't handled before. About 30 minutes in, I saw a car up ahead, parked sideways, partially blocking the road. An old tan Buick with a flat tire and no plates. I slowed. There was no one inside, and no sign of anyone nearby. I figured someone had gone to get help, but I didn't love the idea of navigating around it. Still, I edged past slowly and moved on. That's when I noticed something odd. After a mile or so, the same car was up ahead again. Same make, same color, same missing plates, same flat tire, parked at the same awkward angle across the road. I stared at it for a solid minute. Had I looped somehow? But the trees hadn't looked the same, and I hadn't turned. I backed up, drove around it again, kept going, this time watching the odometer. Exactly 1.2 miles later, it was back. Same car. Now the driver's side door was slightly ajar. I got out slowly and walked up to it. The interior smelled like something sour had been trapped in there for weeks, but it was empty. No wallet, no phone, no clothes or food or gear. I took a photo and turned back to my car. When I got in, I checked the time. 4:47 p.m. I started driving again. Faster this time. I passed the same mile, the same bend, the same slope with the fallen log. And the car was there again. Now both front doors were wide open. I didn't stop. I drove straight around it, heart racing. There was no logical explanation for it. My gas gauge had dropped dramatically, too fast. I'd had half a tank. Now I was below a quarter. I tried turning around. The road behind me had changed. Not a dirt road anymore, just woods. Dense, knotted trees where there had definitely been road minutes before. I screamed, just screamed into the car like it would somehow help. Then I drove forward. I don't know how many loops I made. The car was always there. Sometimes the doors were shut, sometimes open. Once the trunk was ajar, like someone had crawled out. And each time I passed it, the light outside dimmed a little more. The last time I saw it, there was someone standing beside it. Not moving, just standing, with their head tilted slightly to the side, like they were listening for something. That's when I gave up. I turned off the engine, locked the doors, and waited. I must have fallen asleep, because when I opened my eyes, it was morning. The Buick was gone, and the road behind me was paved again. I don't know what happened. The photo I took was blank, just a gray screen, and I haven't been able to find that shortcut on any map. I stayed on highways after that, no more detours. Story 8. I used to pick up hitchhikers. Not often, just when they seemed stranded or the weather was bad. I liked to think I was doing something decent. But after what happened outside Tucson, I never stopped for anyone again. It was late, maybe past midnight. I was heading west, trying to reach a cheap motel I'd found online. Desert all around, flat and endless under a thin silver moon. That's when I saw him, a guy in a hoodie and jeans, standing just off the shoulder with his thumb out. He looked young, early 20s maybe, and didn't seem drunk or dangerous. I slowed and rolled down the passenger window. "Where you headed?" I asked. He leaned down and smiled faintly. "Anywhere but here." It struck me as a strange thing to say, but I unlocked the door anyway. We didn't talk much. He said his name was Micah. He was quiet, polite, never looked at his phone, just stared out the window like he was watching something move in the darkness. After a while, I noticed the air had gotten cold. Not just cool, cold. Like winter in the mountains cold, though it was June and the heater was on. I glanced over. Micah was looking straight at me and smiling. But there was something wrong with his face. Not a disfigurement, just something too still about it, like he was imitating a smile rather than making one. "Do you believe in second chances?" he asked suddenly. What? Second chances, he said again, eyes fixed on mine, even after you've ruined everything. I didn't know what to say. Then he leaned closer and whispered, "You shouldn't have picked me up." I swerved, slammed the brakes, and the car skidded to a stop in the gravel. I shouted at him to get out. My heart was in my throat. He didn't move. Just kept staring at me with that waxy, empty grin. I got out of the car, walked around, yanked open the passenger door. It was empty. No one there. The seat was cold, but not wet or dirty. No footprints on the mat. No smell. Nothing. I was shaking. I got back in and drove straight through the night, engine humming too loud in the quiet. The next day, I told myself I must have fallen asleep behind the wheel and dreamed it. But when I stopped for gas and opened the glove box, I found something that didn't belong. A folded slip of paper. Inside, written in precise block letters, was a message. "I told you not to." I threw it out and kept driving. I've never picked up another hitchhiker. But every now and then, late at night on desert roads, I think I see someone standing in the rearview mirror. Just for a second.